spent an inordinately large amount of time with the shoot-'em-up genre recently. Given that this is the third one I'm reviewing in 2023 and we've barely penetrated February, I'm frankly starting to run out of review intro material for them. Playing multiple games of even a genre I love could threaten to get mundane if they don't have something unique to set themselves apart and make me want to keep playing. That said, while my bullet hell pings of the year have thus far been a bit of a mixed bag, Drainus is the patiently waiting prize at the bottom of it. Drainus is a shoot-'em-up that mixes up typical bullet hell proceedings in a few different ways, but front and center is its absorb mechanic. While most bullet hell titles consist of taking out your enemies with a mix of regular gunfire and special attacks while dodging elaborate flurries of bullets, Drainus separates enemy gunfire into two distinct categories: red outline projectiles that must be dodged in order to avoid damage, or purple ones that can be absorbed for a short time while holding the A button and deflected back at enemies upon releasing it. This adds an extra dimension to battle, since you're constantly trying to absorb gunfire while keeping an eye on the limited capacity shield gauge that allows you to do so, and of course, shooting back at enemies whenever you can. But the regular switching of offensive and defensive capabilities keeps things engaging in a way that others in the genre occasionally struggle with. I should mention though, that absorbing enemy bullet fire goes a lot further than just firing it back at them. It comprehensively connects all of the game's mechanics in a way that I found really impressive. Absorbed energy is stored in tanks that are tracked in the top right of the screen. At any time you can pause the game and open the Enhanced Functions menu, which allows you to spend each full tank you've collected to gain permanent upgrades such as a new weapon, shield, or super bomb, which is your means of special attack. Most upgrades then need to be slotted into your power-up list, and the order is important. Power-up level 1 is your base, naturally, but every time you collect a power-up in-game, you move up a level and activate the corresponding weapon or perk. This means that once you get up to the highest level 5, you could potentially have 5 different weapon types all firing at once. But take a hit from an enemy and you're knocked down a level each time. Take a hit without any power-ups active and you lose a life. When viewed as a whole, the gameplay loop of gaining power-ups to boost both your health and attack power while also absorbing enemy fire to be able to buy said power-ups and slot them in whichever way you see fit works tremendously well. This wouldn't mean much if the stages and enemies aren't fun, but thankfully Drainus has no issues there either. The game consists of 6 relatively short stages, but these include a wide variety of enemies that will absolutely keep you on your toes the whole time. Boss battles at the end of each stage are a multi-phase affair that always pose a solid challenge, but thankfully the checkpoint system is very reasonable, so even if you lose all your lives, you won't be set back too far. Most importantly though, Drainus' gameplay feels tight due to excellent controls, which are further enhanced by the ability to precisely input how fast you want your ship to move in both its normal mode and the slow mode that can be activated with the right bumper if you want to slow your ship down for better maneuverability, a useful feature that is curiously absent from the tutorial. There are some minor hiccups in terms of occasional issues with distinguishing background scenery from in-game objects that will hurt you, and for that reason I recommend playing with the stealth bumpers feature on, which prevents you from hitting any level objects that you're not supposed to. For bullet hell veterans, I probably should say that Drainus on normal difficulty isn't an especially tough game when viewed by the standards of the genre. The first couple of levels were a breeze, and while I died a few times on later levels, those looking for a serious challenge may be better off playing on hard. I will say though, that without any story spoilers, while I ran through the game stages in about an hour and a half, seeing the game's true ending will require you to go through 𝐥𝐤𝐬 mode, effectively the game's version of New Game Plus, which sees you fighting through much more difficult versions of the same stages with all of your upgrades intact plus some new ones available for good measure. This mode is definitely a lot more difficult than the initial run, which is going to get frustrating quickly if you're not strategically managing your power-ups and where they're slotted. It keeps things interesting though, even as you essentially repeat what you just did. Is it a conveniently contrived way to inexpensively double the length of the game? Probably. But is it still a lot of fun and completely worth doing? Definitely. If you can handle the high difficulty, of course. This is in spite of Drainus having a story that's more or less just kinda there. It follows 𝐸𝐸𝐸, a pilot who's stolen the Drainus, a state-of-the-art, albeit unfortunately named fighter ship, belonging to the oppressive Carlyle Empire, and uses it to attempt to save her father. It's fun to follow along with the story, and it doesn't get too in the way of the gameplay, but as it would be with any short-form science fiction trying to get you up to speed with its characters and lore in just a few minutes, it ultimately feels like jumping into a new TV show by starting in its final season. We're given virtually no reason to care about these characters, their relationships, or the central conflict at hand, but thankfully, each story segment of Drainus is brief enough not to drain me of my patience. Graphically, there's a lot to like about the game's pixel art aesthetic. Characters and environments are rendered with a loving attention to detail, and some of the bosses especially look excellent. I would have appreciated a little more variety in scenery as the game went on, but overall there's not much to complain about here. I should put a brief warning out there though. Several enemies have energy beam attacks with very bright flashing lights that didn't personally bother me, but given the inability to turn these off, it's worth mentioning for any of you out there that it may negatively impact. I have very little to say about the soundtrack, which is fine but totally forgettable in my opinion, but can't win them all. Overall, Drainus is a great time. It's a fantastically designed game with a bounty of great ideas put to use in exceptionally smart ways. While its mediocre story and short runtime might not make it a match for everyone, it's probably my favorite shoot 'em up I've played recently, and, given that I've had no shortage of them, speaks volumes about its quality. Whether you're bullet hell obsessed or bullet hell curious, you're not likely to be disappointed with this one.
𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞